Good morning, my name is Mark Arnold, one of the members here at Above Bar Church. Today's verses come from Paul telling the story of his calling on the Damascus road, in the context of being on trial before Herod Agrippa. You can read the whole of Acts 26 to see fully what's going on here. But here are today's verses, beginning at verse 12. In this connection I journeyed to Damascus with the authority and commission of the chief priests. At midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we'd all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It's hard for you to kick against the goads. And I said, Who are you, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and stand upon your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and witness to the things in which you have seen me, and to those in which I will appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles, to whom I am sending you, to open their eyes, so they may turn from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins, and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Paul was on the road to Damascus, serving God to the best of his ability. As a devout Pharisee, he thought he was doing God's will. Then he sees a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, and he hears a voice calling his name. Saul, Saul. Saul's Paul's name in Hebrew, basically. Steeped in the Old Testament as Saul was, and believing, indeed longing as he did, for God to speak in the same way in his day, there was only one conclusion. This was the God of Israel, Yahweh himself, appearing to him, speaking to him. And yet there's a puzzle too, because he says, why are you persecuting me? Paul's persecuting Christians. And he is puzzled now. What's the link between persecuting Christians and persecuting Yahweh? And so he asks the question, who are you, Yahweh? Like Moses hundreds of years before at the burning bush, Paul wants more information about who this God is. And the answer will shock him to the core. Because God's answer begins, I am, which in Hebrew is how he begins his answer to Moses at the burning bush. I am who I am, as he reveals his name. And this time as he reveals his name, it's I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. The Yahweh that Paul thought he was serving so zealously by persecuting Christians turns out to be Jesus of Nazareth. Paul had missed the signs that were there, but Jesus graciously met him. And not only did he meet with Paul, but he gives him a new calling, to be a light to the Gentiles, to fulfill all that Israel was supposed to do. Because the world, then as it is now, was a dark place. The empires of Paul's day, the Roman Empire, the empires that preceded it, were horrible places of brutality and gruesomeness. In the midst of those sort of people, Israel was supposed to show a different way. But we know how their story failed so often. And in Jesus, the God of Israel, Yahweh himself, steps into human history to fulfill all that Israel should have been. But in a way that utterly shocked Israel's leaders at the time, because he comes from his throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt, as the song puts it. And from there to the shame and scandal of a cross. Under the curse of disobedience, the Messiah, the King of Israel, dies. And Paul, after his vision on the Damascus road, goes back to the scriptures and sees that it was there all along, but that Jesus' life and death is the missing piece that puts everything else into place. That Jesus' death and resurrection bring light and life to a dark, dead world. And so Paul is commissioned by Yahweh, the risen Christ, to show that light to the Gentiles. That Gentiles can be part of God's people. That they don't have to be marked out by the old Jewish laws, but instead they're marked out by the indwelling presence of Yahweh himself living in them. The Holy Spirit who sanctifies us by faith in him, who sets us apart for God. And so this Christmas time, let's once more pay attention to Paul's message. To Paul, who like Moses before him was commissioned to bring God's words of light and liberation to people in darkness and slavery. Perhaps this is a good time this Christmas to pause and to ask, where have I got serving God mixed up with my own misunderstandings? Ask God to help you read Moses and the prophets, to read Jesus' story and Paul's explanations with humility and eyes ready to be open to the transforming light of Christ.